Thank you very much, Patrick. Julian, thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for making the effort to come here. There are many things happening. You could be at home watching Netflix, but here you are. So thank you for that. There are many thank yous because to write a book like this is not that easy, and one needs support of many people. One or two people I would like to mention, like Leif, who's sitting right over here, who read my book twice, once as a manuscript, once as the book, and gave me a lot of positive feedback. Ella, who worked with me on the book. My wife, who did a very strong critic but supporter of my work, and I really owe her a great, great deal. And other people, but also the students. I've been teaching this now for 25 years. That's quite a long time. And they really are the ones who've taught me the most as far as Parzival is concerned. So in this book here, the cover was made by a student during my Parzival block. Here at the back we also have some of the drawings that have been made by former students, and the book is filled with other artwork by the students. Not only, but also work that they produced in clay and in skits and so forth. Furthermore, the comments in the class that you cannot read in any other book. Insightful things that they come up with, where I just have to stand back and inwardly bow down to them. And if we have time, I will read one or two of these insightful things that they have said. So, it is a strange year. It is the anniversary of teaching Parzival. 100 years ago, the very first Parzival block was taught by Walter Johannes Stein. And he was a person, if some of you I know of him and have read his book, the 9th century. He taught Parzival for many years there, and he was the one who, together with Steiner, thought, wouldn't it be good to teach Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parzival to the 11th graders. And of course, Walter Johannes Stein was one of these people who asked many questions. He would not let go, and he kept on seeking out Rudolf Steiner and asking questions after questions after questions. I personally am very glad because of those questions we have many more insights. So it is the anniversary. It was in January 1923, 2 weeks after the first Goetheanum was burnt down. So it was really a kind of a pivotal nodal point when he gave that first block on Parzival. Now we have 2023, 100 years later. And it so happens that I taught a Parzival block back in March or April, whenever it was, and on Monday I'm teaching another Parzival block. So I get to teach it twice in this year of anniversary, and I think that's special. For me, it's special. But not only that, it's in the air. There are many Parzivalian things happening. For example, back in March, my wife and I, we went to see Lohengrin. The Met Opera was performing Lohengrin at the Lincoln Center. Wagner's opera. And Lohengrin, of course, is the son of Parzival and Conduiro Moore. Then, this year, we went to the Goetheanum for the World Teachers Conference, and just before the beginning of the conference, they performed, not they, the actors from a mainstream acting company and the Goetheanum with the Eurythmists performed Parzival. And it was the last performance that we were lucky enough to see. So I thought, Lohengrin, Parzival, teaching Parzival, centenary, things are happening, yeah? So it is a special year. It also happens to be the 50th anniversary of Hawthorne Valley School. The Nature Institute had the 25th anniversary. Alkion Center has the 20th anniversary. So things are aligned, so to speak. I called my book, Why Parzival? I could have said also, Why Parzival Matters. Like there's a book called Why Homer Matters. I wanted to leave matter out of it because it has to do so much with spirit. Yeah. It's a great book. It's a great story. But it was written in the Middle Ages. And the question has arisen by some people, why keep on teaching it? So it has been dropped by a few Waldorf high schools. So I thought, why Parzival? Because it's a wonderful time when there are questions. Why teach a book that's written in the Middle Ages in Europe by a white person? Why? Good question. However, one could make the argument, was it really in Europe by a white person? Because, you see, he says, I didn't really write Parzival. And the story I got from Quiot, the Provençal, from the south. He in turn said, I got it from Phlegetanis. And I found this manuscript in an old library. And Phlegetanis was from the Near East. His father was a pagan. By the way, Wolfram von Eschenbach, when he uses words like pagan or heathen or infidel or Saracen, never ever with any prejudice, ever. Not at all. We have to really remember that. So here we've got this person from the Middle East, Phlegetanis, a star sage, he's called. And he himself, who was not a white person from Europe, he was a man, however, he said, and I got the story from the stars. From the stars, which means it's universal. It goes beyond here and now. And that universal quality is in Parzival throughout. That was, so we could make that argument of it going beyond this white person from Europe and so forth. Nevertheless, why Parzival? That was a big question that I wanted to ask myself, and there were many reasons, very many reasons for me. Is it still relevant to our time? So I asked that question. Do I need to re-evaluate that myself? Indeed, I do. Do we as teachers in Waldorf schools need to re-evaluate what we teach? Always. Not just Parzival. Every block we teach. Everything we teach. You know, this, while writing it, I completed it, as you can see, but it's one book after the completion where I feel, no, I have not completed it. I could add this and add this and add that. And I keep on coming across other books where I say, wow, I wish I could quote that. You know, I was listening to the radio, and their public radio, and suddenly this person interviewed was talking about the Spirit. I said, what, am I on the right channel, or is this some Christian channel? What's going on here? No, it was an interview with a Native American woman who was talking about her new book called Becoming Kin, with A, and so I wrote it down just in case I forget. Becoming Kin, I like that title because humanity, we have to become kin. There's so much separation, and we have to become kin. The subtitle is An Indigenous Call to Unforgetting the Past and Reimagining the Future. I thought that's the kind of subtitle I also would have liked, except the indigenous part, it's not for me to write the indigenous part, but plainly, a call to unforgetting the past. The past has been forgotten. There is so much that we have forgotten. And there are so many writers, especially if now we think of DEI, and that stream, it is asking us to now see all these other cultures. They have been forgotten and their spirituality has been forgotten. I underscore spirituality. She is talking about that spirituality of the Native Americans. We have to start remembering that again. Parzival is all about remembering the past, unforgetting the past. Now's the time where we are questioning it, where we can do that, where we should do that, where we need to do that, because the future demands it. And then it says reimagining the future. Easy to be said, but that means we need imagination. Imagination is not something, okay, I will reimagine it, and then we become clever and we do clever talk. We are a very, very clever age, and we can easily be clever and argue. But that's not the point. Imagination, that needs to be schooled. And what happens is imagination is being drowned, is being killed off. It really is. That's why we have Waldorf schools. And then we can truly reimagine. But it goes further than that. It also needs to be re-inspired. We need to have a listening ear. So with imagination, it's seeing. With inspiration, it's listening. So we need to be open. We need to silence ourselves, and we need to listen to that which wants to be manifested. But it goes further. We need to develop more to intuit. Intuition. So imagination, inspiration, intuition. That is self-development. We need to develop ourselves inwardly, and that takes work. So we can do a lot of workshops and all of that, but that's never enough. We need to admit this takes years. But guess what? Parzival is a book that is based on, and it's a prototype of the development of the human being. And in our age, with all the difficulties that there are and all the warfare that there is, small and big, it needs people who imagine, are inspired, and have intuition. And that is something, those seeds need to be planted. And it's no joke, although we can joke in class and have humor. But it's serious business. So why else did I choose Parzival? Why do I think it's important? Well, I had many unanswered questions for myself, so I needed to answer those as well. I do have my own subtitle, which is An Epic of Our Age with Global Reach and Its Secret Connections to World of Education. So first of all, epic. It's an epic, a big book. It's not easy to read. You know what? The students don't necessarily have to read the whole book. He was a Minnesänger, Eschenbach. So he told the story. He sang the story. He was like a Greek rhapsode, a troubadour of the Middle Ages. So it was heard. Last year I brought in Seamus Maynard for one class, and he told one aspect of the story. And there you could see the students really entering into the imagination. I try and do a little bit of that as well. I even try to have some of the students do some of that. An epic of our age. written in the Middle Ages. But this is not a normal epic. This was read in the stars for the future. Unforgetting so that we can go into the future. So it is of our age, and it is of our age because we see it all around us, all the time. So blockbusters like Star Wars. Star Wars has a deep connection to anthroposophy and Waldorf teachers because, make sure I get my name right. Do I have my name? And of course I don't have that name there. Marcia Lucas, am I right? Is that the name of George Lucas's wife? She, anyway, came to Werner Glass and said, George has written this story and he would like it, and I would like it to be a little bit more spiritualized. Can you help? And so, without going into detail, for example, from Luke Starkiller, it was changed to Skywalker. Just one example, yeah? So there is that connection. But there's also like the Fisher King with Robin Williams, yeah, in Manhattan. It's a great movie. It's Parzival. It's the Grail. Or we have the Da Vinci Code, yes? The Da Vinci Code, all about the Grail in a materialistic way. Still the Grail. People then read it, and then the questions come up, and then other books get written. Where does it end? That movie ends, which we still... Oh, you read the book, but if we see the book and the movie, it ends at Rosslyn Chapel. We were there just a few weeks ago in the summer. That's where the Grail then ends in this story. It has a mood because this place from the Templars, you can see, this is not just an ordinary place. But I digress because what I want to point out is that it's all around us. Ready Player One, that sci-fi movie, the name of the virtual name of the protagonist is Parzival. And the story, this virtual story, is really a quest story, a Parzivalian quest story. Yeah? Or then a friend of mine, he wrote a book called On the Ropes. He's an African American, and he used to belong to the Black Panthers, and he was a boxer, so it's semi-biographical. He named his hero, now he's an African American, Parzival. And so I was doing a reading with him, and I asked him, why Parzival? And he said, because Parzival had to overcome so many challenges, insurmountable challenges. And so it goes on. There are other books, that quest stories that we could mention. Even Harry Potter has Parzivalian Grail aspects to it, yeah? Or Lord of the Rings, and we could go on and on. It is there. It's around us. Yeah. So, the story of Parzival can be told very quickly. This simpleton growing up in the wilderness, in nature, he sees 3 knights. He wonders about them. He's a god. The quest is born to become a knight. He leaves his mother, who dies. He doesn't know that she dies. He goes out. He has all these encounters with many people. So relationships, encounters. Another book I just picked up, published a few months ago, called Encounterism. The importance of encounters. At this moment, we are all encountering one another. The encounters in life are important. So he has, Parzival, all these encounters, and each one teaches him something special, because every encounter we have changes us a little bit. And then he makes many mistakes. And he's not even aware of them. So many mistakes we do, we're not aware of them. Individually, and as a community, and as human beings. Until he comes to the Grail Castle, and there he does not ask the question. And that's the second quest for him, to search for the Grail. Not to become outwardly speaking, a great knight of King Arthur, but the Grail. That's the story. Then he goes through a lot of suffering and doubt and rejecting God. Rejecting God is a very modern thing to do, yeah? Every year I have in my class some devout atheists who are usually very spiritual. They just haven't woken up to that yet, but they are. So, Grail. And then, what is the Grail? It's elusive, yeah? But that's the story in a nutshell. And yet, there's hardly anything in life that that Parzival, the book, the epic, does not address in one way or another. Part of my title is "And its Secret Connections to World of Education." And I felt that was important because many of the characters in Parzival are literary characters that, however, have also an historical basis. And some of these characters, karmically speaking, are part of the Waldorf movement and anthroposophy. And I decided to write about that as well. The play that has been performed, what's called the Fire in the Temple, that alluded to some of that. I go into more detail with some of these things. So the connection is very close of world of education and Parzival. And especially as teachers, we should know that. Just like we should know the works of Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner is in Parzival. He is. As other characters as well. Of course, it also says, my title, Global Reach. This epic tries to combine and unify the East and the West, the North and the South, the different races of this earth, the different religions of this earth. We have that attempt in the first 2 chapters of Parzival by Eschenbach, not by Chrétien de Troyes. He doesn't have those first 2. Especially in the first one, this effort to combine East and West. When Parzival's father goes out and wants to serve the highest ruler. He does not go out, although he is the kind of knight par excellence. He doesn't go out to dominate any other place, but to serve. I think there's a lesson to be learned in that in our time. And he serves the Baruch of Baghdad. Yeah. And he is recognized to be a great knight. They become friends. And so you see there's kind of a unification that wants to happen between the religions and between the races. Heightened, enhanced by him, Gamuret, then meeting Belakane, who is from Africa. She is a person of dark skin. They marry, and they have a son, Firefis. However, then we see that there's a darkness in Gamuret, an inner darkness, and there is an inner lightness in Belakane. So the color imagery is never just straightforward. They merge together in different ways. What is in the beginning, what wasn't possible in the beginning, becomes possible at the end of Parzival, when Firefeast and Parzival meet each other, and then he chooses, he being Parzival, his brother to come to the Grail, because Parzival is becoming Grail king. So we have it relevant to our age, and we have it being global, and the secrets to world of education. I would like to read one or two parts here that well, the many things I will not read. So as far as sometimes when students say things, I know that many of you do know the story, and if those of you who don't know the story, I don't even have time to give the background, but I will just read what this one girl said. Parzival had met the knights, and they triggered his quest to become, outwardly speaking, a knight. And then he's in the castle where he does not ask any questions, and failure is introduced. In other words, consciousness of not having achieved something. One girl mentioned how interesting it is that Parzival thought he was seeing God when he first saw the 4 knights in the forest of Sultane, because their armor shone so brightly in the sun, pummeling them with questions, a whole bunch of questions. But then, when he sees the Grail, something truly sublime and godlike, shining brighter than the sun, he does not ask any questions at all. She went on to say how, in the first instance, he misconstrued what he saw, but it triggered his quest to become a knight. Conversely, at the Grail ceremony, he recognized that something mystical was happening, and though he lacked the capacity to understand, it gave birth to his quest to find the Grail. Failure. Yes, let's embrace failure. Failure is painful. Failure is a ubiquitous human shortcoming. No one can escape the curse or cure of failure. Failure wakes us up to our own deficiencies, our weaknesses, our errors, our unconscious selves. Failure leads and thrusts us inward. Failure is an eye-bending self-confrontation. We fear failure, yet it's necessary, irrevocable, and inescapable part of life. Failure is an infallible companion. Failure is a directive, a corrective, a dictate from destiny. We avoid failure, but we need failure in order to not fail in the future. Even the gods fail. It is only now that Parzival's true initiation begins. And the thing is that Parzival is an initiation story. It is knowledge of the higher worlds in an imagination. We shouldn't forget that. It truly is. There is, for those who know, esoterics right through it. We don't have to name those esoterics. Some of the esoterics is common sense, but it's there in many different ways. Another student who never said much, very shy, would always sit at the back of the class, but listened with an inspired heart. She was even new to Waldorf, only just joined in the 11th grade. And then we were dealing with chapter 9, which is about Trevirsant, the hermit, where there's that inner space. Remember, the development of the I is what Parzival is all about. It's about the development of the I throughout. And we all need counselors, like Trevirsant. And then she said the following. But before I read, we have to know that when he failed at the castle, at the Grail Castle, he met Siguna, another important character, who really lambasted him for not asking the question. And then he, oh yeah, bad me. But then he kind of forgot about that and was all happy when he came to Arthur's court and he would be inducted as a knight. So he had already forgotten. We forget what we learn, so we need reminders. And Kundry comes in, this loathly lady who we meet in Arthurian legends as well, who really curses him badly. So he gets rejected badly. So she says, a rather shy student and new to the class once compared Trevirsant to Kundry. I'd never thought or come across that assessment before, and I was intrigued. Kundry and Trevirsant have similar functions. She paused, trying to find the right words. They both tell him the truth, but with Kundry it comes across as a curse, which wakes him up. And with the hermit, it is like a blessing that gives him new hope to continue in his quest. Both move him forward. Those are the moments where you say, so good, so good. One of the high points in Parzival is, of course, the question that we know as, Uncle, what ails thee? We hear it often. Waldorf teachers quote it, anthroposophists quote it. Or, what troubles you, Uncle? It's a question of compassion. We cannot go forward without compassion. I would like to read a small excerpt about that. In German, remember this is medieval German, it is written that one line, Uncle, what ails thee, is written like this. Oheim, was wird dir? You know, when I first read that, I thought, very different to Uncle, what ails thee? Was wird dir? The word wird is an interesting word. The question is translated as, Dear Uncle, what ails thee? Or, what is it that troubles you, anfortas? Anfortas, enfermo, unstrong, whichever way you want to put it. Names have secrets, yes. They are both right, but the word wird has deeper and more encompassing connotations. Wird indicates confusion, an inner disorder or dishevelment, an element of chaos and soul's spiritual turmoil. I'll leave something out. While fighting in the name of love, amor, for orgelus, anfortas with Eschenbach, amfortas with Wagner. Let himself be led astray, becoming entangled in something bewildering, all of which is embedded in the word wird, and also in wirren and verwirren or verwirrt, connoting lack of control. Furthermore, we have an English cousin in the word worry, which, like wird, includes troubles, unease, anxiety, torment, and great suffering to the point of feeling crazed. Wird also implies turbulent movement, preventing clear-headedness, where all thoughts are roiled by agonizing, incessant pain. In Anfortas, the death forces of Saturn and the reproductive forces of the moon are not in harmony, where the one polarity warreth with the other. Only Parzival, in whom the planets have settled into harmony and a state of calm, can now bestow the needed balance. So it is bigger. There's something bigger about that. And then when he asks the question, there's this transformation. And of course, it's not an intellectual question. He suffered for years and years, many battles, going through many inner turmoil. The journey of the eye, by the way, is an inner journey. Yeah? It's going inward. You go inward so that you can again go outward consciously and differently and create love where it needs to be. But there's something that's easily missed, and there are many things in Parzival that are easily missed, and that is how it actually transforms Anfortas. So I'll read a little bit there. Throughout this epic, we have heard how beautiful and handsome Parzival is, beyond all others. The students almost get annoyed. Why is he always called so beautiful and handsome? Everybody says that. Not least in the previous 2 chapters, where again, when Parzival comes back, little interlude. This book is, the Eschenbach's book is called Parzival, but really Parzival is a combination of 3 different characters: Parzival, Gawain, and Fire-Fils. They are different aspects of one person. It's this threefoldedness that all human beings, all of us share. The will element of Fire-Fils, the heart element of Gawain, and the thinking element of Parzival. A little bit like if you think of Hindu statues with all the different arms, yeah? Why do they have that? Well, to connote different qualities. And so we have different arms. Here, he makes use of that in a similar way, except it's 3 different people. 1 in 3, 3 in 1. Very important to know that. Coming back to what I wanted to read. Parzival is, beyond all others, not least in the previous 2 chapters, when he reappeared on the scene after the Gawain chapters. Yet, the very moment after Anfortas' miraculous change, we hear that Parzival's beauty was as nothing beside it. That is, in comparison to Anfortas' beauty. This healing, this change, this cathartic moment brought about by the interest of one person toward another is as much an act of love as it is of beauty. Wolfram adds, God's power to apply his artistry is undiminished today. Why? Because it comes from a place of truth, worked through truth. What if we can, instead of warring with the others, and we do, the anthroposophists warred at the beginning of the century with one another, ask that question, was wird dir? That would make the world beautiful. All of us really have to get there. Maybe it's going to take a long time. Not maybe, it will take a long time. But that's the way we've got to go. There is no other way. It needs to be through truth, beauty, and love, which of course then means freedom as well. We had an African American student who graduated from here, and let me just see. He wrote a poem about firefish, yeah? Which really means colorful sun. It's dappled black and white, but what is really meant is every color found on this earth. Colorful sun, every color. They fight, they have this tremendous fight, Parzival and Firefish. They are brothers. They don't know it. Different mother. But then he wrote this part of a poem. Legend tells us, this is this child, this student, legend tells us that Parzival was greater. But in fact it was Firefish who cast aside his blade, and with it fear and jealousy abated. And it was he who hugged his kin and forgave. It's moving. It's moving. Yeah. So we're approaching the end here. And right at the end, he's at the Grail Castle, and he's not just the Grail King, it's the Grail King with Conduira Moore, the Grail Queen. It's a unity. And then Firefish falls in love with the Grail Bearer, Rapunzel the Scheue, which means thinking of joy or the thought of joy. They marry, they go together to the east, and in the east they give birth to so-called Prester John. We don't learn much about Prester John in schools anymore, but we should. He changed history. We just forget. It's part of the unforgetting that we need to work on. Wolfram's brief mention of Prester John heralds and foreshadows a future task where unity between the races, religions, and cultures is of existential importance, not only for peace, but for the nurturing of the highest ideal. Love which rests on the freedom of all people. And then, just a little bit more. Prester John was known under various names in the respective countries, such as Zheliu Linhua in China, according to the Manichaean Chinese annals, or El Avar in the Middle East, according to the Oriental historian Ibn el-Athir in his chronicles El Kamil, which means the perfect one. However, the person most associated with Prester John was King Lalibela of Ethiopia. Ethiopia was in the Middle Ages sometimes seen as India, and India was sometimes seen as Ethiopia. Ethiopia was sometimes recognized to represent all of Africa. My point is, this is globality. Parzival is seeking for globality. So, this movement between East and West, North and South, different religions, different races, differences as such, can be overcome if we school ourselves, if we nurture and foster compassion. Compassion for all human beings. Then we will have a future that will be joyous. I think I will leave it there. Thank you very much.